How's it going? My name is Spencer Adams, and today I'm going to be talking about, for my final presentation in Ethics and Values class, a little bit about embryonic stem cell research. Specifically, I'm going to be going over the pros of embryonic stem cell research as opposed to the cons. A lot of different people have different views on this, and it's a very heated topic that has been going on since, for the last 20, 30 years since it began. And so the first thing that I'm going to do in my video presentation is I'm going to explain exactly what stem cell research is and what a stem cell is. What is it? What is a stem cell? Because that's going to be really important to understand not only the pros and the good things that can come from stem cell research, but also the cons, which I'm going to just brush over briefly because you have to understand both sides of the argument in order to understand the pros, which is what I'm, again, going to be focusing on. So first of all, how you get a stem cell? How do you get a stem cell? An embryonic stem cell for that case. How you get an embryonic stem cell is through the first few days of pregnancy. Obviously, we have the egg cell in the woman, and we have the sperm cell in the man. And so naturally, the sperm cell will eventually, to get pregnant, penetrate the egg cell. And then this fertilized egg is called a zygote. Now, this zygote is then going to undergo the process of mitosis, if you remember back to 7th grade science, right? And so what happens during mitosis is this zygote is going to split. That's what mitosis is. It's going to split into 2, then into 4, then into 8, then 16. It's just going to keep doing that over and over until this group of cells becomes a blastocyst. That's the word for it. It's a group of cells, many zygotes, that begin to form, and it eventually is going to form into a fetus, which is going to grow into the baby. So those are the steps. Now, stem cells, they come in the blastocyst. Okay, and so with this big group of cells from the mitosis, the outer layer of the blastocyst is going to be the placenta. It's going to be the sac that the baby grows in, right? Okay, but the cells on the inside of the blastocyst are the stem cells. Now, stem cells are really amazing, and the reason why this is such a big topic is because stem cells can really do anything. They're extremely powerful. So in our body, in my hand, in my head, in my body, we are made of cells: skin cells, blood cells, bone cells, right? My hair is made out of cells, and brain cells, muscle cells, we're all made out of cells. These stem cells at this point in the pregnancy they do not yet have a purpose. They don't have a function, but they will, and they can become and take on any function that the body needs. That's what makes them so amazing. So what happens with these stem cells, we're trying to unlock the secret to stem cells, right? Because if we can unlock the secret to stem cells, then we can do so much more. And that's when I'm going to get into the pros, but not quite yet. Okay, so what happens when a couple cannot get pregnant? That is the purpose behind stem cell research, is because, a man and a woman, they want to have a kid. They can't, for whatsoever reason. Different people struggle with different forms of infertility, but they go to a research lab and say, hey, can you do this for us? And so by surgery, out of the ovaries come the egg cells out of the woman, and the man produces sperm cells, and they do it for them in a Petri dish. The problem with this research is when a stem cell is extracted from a blastocyst, the embryo dies, the blastocyst dies. And so what happens in these labs for couples, at least, that want to get pregnant, they will give many eggs and many sperm cells, and say, just for example, they'll give 12 of each, right? And so the researchers will be growing 12 separate blastocysts. Now, the likelihood of a blastocyst to grow inside the uterus is not very high. So what they'll do is, of the 12, they'll take the healthiest, 3 or 4 or 5 and put it back into the uterus of the woman. And hopefully one, or who knows, maybe even 2, will catch in the uterus, and it'll start to grow, and it'll become an embryo and a fetus and a baby. And boom, hopefully a baby has is healthy, and 10 fingers 10 toes. But what happens with the rest of the blastocysts is, the couple has a few decisions. Then they can say, okay, well, we either want to store, for a small fee, we want to store the rest of our blastocysts with you until, if we want to try again and have another kid in a few years. Or they can say, listen, we got pregnant, we have a kid, and boom, we'll donate the rest of our blastocysts to science. Do what you will with them for research purposes. And so again, this goes back to the ethical debate of this. Is once a stem cell is, like I said, extracted from a blastocyst, the embryo dies, the growing embryo dies. And so the cons of this, what a lot of people struggle with is, what is the beginning of human life? A lot of people believe it's right at conception, right as soon as the sperm, penetrates the egg, life happens. A lot of people think it's the zygote. A lot of people think it's at the embryo. That is a human. A lot of people think it's not till the fetus, or until the fetus has a central nervous system, or brain tissue, and it can think and it can start to move with appendages. That's the debate, and it, depending on if you're religious or if you're not, a lot of people have a lot of different views on does that embryo have rights? Because if it does, then we're creating a lot of embryos, and then we're killing them. It's the playing God type of argument from their point of view. But what I'm focusing on today is the pros of this embryonic stem cell research. And there are a ton of pros, let me tell you. I could probably talk about this for days, because as we go back to what I explained in the very beginning, stem cells are amazing. They're cells that can become anything. The word for that is pluripotential stem cells. And so not only can they become anything, researchers have a lot of things that they can do. Imagine with these stem cells, all the things that they can do. So some of these things is, for diseases and for, wounds in the body, any type of, disease that you've been diagnosed with, stem cells have the potential to cure is a big word, but at least treat some of these things. So what I want to do is I want to walk through some of these things that can be big pros. Okay, so the first one is types of mental diseases or just body diseases like Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease in the brain. If someone comes in with a motorcycle accident and they have head trauma, if they have head damage, brain damage, potentially stem cells, you can replace the damaged part of the brain, and you can replace it with these stem cells, and they will grow the brain back to how it's supposed to be working, and out walks a healthy person, right? So brain damage with muscles and tissues and organs, for whether they're damaged or whether they're not complete, if we can use these stem cells to grow a perfectly good organ, then we can have a perfectly working human. For example, if someone needs a transplant of an organ, my uncle Tyler, he had to have a kidney transplant because both of his kidneys were failing, and you need at least one to live, right? Everyone has two, but you need one at least. And luckily he had a match. We found someone, and it wasn't, life-threatening. It was life-threatening, but we had a time span for him to find a donor, and we did, and he's living today, he's doing fine. But other organs, the heart transplants, in cases where it's going to be really tough to find a perfect match really fast, stem cells can potentially create entire organs that can be perfect matches for us, of all types, blood types and things like that would fit the match for a person who's having that issue. Here's another thing: is a large percent of embryos do not implant in the uterus, and they're not capable of developing into a fetus. And so a lot of people will say, oh, well, we're killing, blastocysts, or we're killing embryos, we're killing people. But at the end of the day, a very large majority of embryos are going to fail. They're not actually going to turn into a fetus. And it's interesting because, donated embryos have a death sentence anyway. Before the donation is made, they're already for the purpose of stem cell research, though, so they're never going to reach the fetus position anyway. The uterus inside a woman is necessary for that growth process, and in this case, that's not going to be made available once the cells are once it's all in a Petri dish, right? But what scientists might be, another thing is scientists might be able to extend, or I guess ease people's worry, because adult stem cells, they don't have the ability to become any type of cell, only embryonic stem cells. But as we continue with embryonic stem cell research, we can possibly make adult stem cells have that ability, which would solve that concern of killing, early stage pregnancy. And so, there's a lot of different debates. That's really all I have for you today. I believe there's a lot of pros, and I'll just end on this one is, I have a lot of family members that are diabetic. My mother is diabetic. I have an uncle that's diabetic. I have 2 cousins that are diabetic, and all 4 of them are type 1. If we can continue the stem cell research in a safe way, if we can find maybe adult stem cells or in some other method to have the potential of curing, say, a pancreas, so that a pancreas in my mom, it can relearn to produce insulin, so she doesn't have to carry a pump around. She doesn't have to, give herself shots all the time. She doesn't constantly have to be checking her blood sugar. This would be huge. So I think the stem cell research is really amazing, and those are definitely the pros. But again, it all goes back to where you think life starts. And so that is the con of stem cell research. But thank you for listening, and have a good day.